Hey my good friends, Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. It's that time of the month again where your viewer comments, the ones that really get my attention, well, they're starting to stack up and it's time to have a talk about a few things. It's time for Mow Down. Alright my friends, here we go. Now as always, this is a completely unscripted video that we do here on the Mow Down, where I've got viewer comments right here that have gotten my attention and they're on some of our videos, and we're just going to go right down the list and some questions to answer as well as a few things to straighten out and a couple things to respond to. So let's get going here. First comment is on the 2017 Volkswagen Passat SEL test drive we did, and the comment comes from Gregarious Solitudinist. The USA fuel standards are ridiculous. Everybody wants enough room for 10 passengers and 100 miles per gallon. It ain't happening. Expect a car to get about 20 mpg. The guy with the big ears is gone. Well, first of all, look, nobody's expecting 10 passengers and 100 miles per gallon. That's ridiculous. But we have come a long way from the days back in the 70s when everything got 7, 10, and 15 miles per gallon. And if you got a Honda or a Toyota back then, you might have gotten 20. It's only the fact that the government has really forced these CAFE standards down upon us, the manufacturers, that it has forced the technologies to make these cars actually more fuel efficient. And the thing to point out here, and I'm sort of going to respond to that about the guy with the big ears is gone. The current CAFE standards, the law as it's written, those were signed into law by George Bush, the last president before the guy with the big ears. The last president, Obama, he actually did a little bit of work with the EPA, and he actually made some agreements with the automakers that helped enforce those laws, but he didn't change the law himself in a big way. Believe it or not only were these CAFE standards originally developed and put into law back in the 70s under a Republican presidential administration, but the last current law as it exists now, which is pretty tough, was put into place by another Republican. So a lot of people tend to blame this on the environmentalists, the liberals, Democrats. The reality is that this came about during Republican administrations. A Republican signed these things into law, and that's just the way it is. That's the reality. But I will say that while I don't like CAFE standards, in fact, I wrote articles when the last round of them came out decrying the fact that it's going to ruin the muscle car as we know it. But the reality is even though we did have an era in the 70s and 80s where cars sucked, right? They had no horsepower, they still got bad gas mileage. We got through it, we got to a point where the import brands were able to create horsepower, value, quality, and good driving dynamics and fuel economy. The American manufacturers had to catch up. That's just how it is. So I don't think anyone's expecting 10 passengers and 100 mpg, but I guarantee you it's going to happen at some point or another. Next comment is on the 2017 Jeep Compass test drive. Nice review, but we missed the Mogul test. And thank you, by the way, Raggerveer C, for that. So the Mogul test, what is that? Well, on some of the SUVs and trucks we've tested, I have a place out in the desert that I call the Mogul. It's a place where I can get a vehicle up on one front wheel, one back wheel, and get it teeter-tottering so that the all-wheel drive system is forced to divvy up power to just one front and one rear wheel. And it's a good test to see how robust that all-wheel drive system is, or how robust the traction control is. At the end of the day, how much capability does it have if you're really out in a rough spot, if you're off-roading or maybe snow, mud, whatever. Does it have the capability as measured against some of its competitors in how to do those things? And typically SUVs that have locking center differentials, or they have the ability to turn a knob and change it up, how that actually divvies up traction, those do the best. But surprisingly, there are some out there that are fully automatic that do quite well too. But question is why do we not have it here on this test, and this person misses it? They're fun to do, I got to tell you, but the reality is sometimes I go out to this particular spot to do this test and there's people there. I can't do it. That's one thing. The other thing is over time I've kind of gotten to the point where it doesn't always really prove a damn thing, because some vehicles do it well, some don't. It's just one test. there's a lot of other things that you can do to really show how robust or how capable those traction systems are. And unless I'm really truly able to have that dedicated spot available for every single test, just doing it on some and not doing it on others, not really fair to all the cars out there. So that's one of the reasons you don't see it very often anymore. Typically in the winter time when the snowbirds are here in Arizona, that would be our winter visitors. That particular location is full of RVs and horse trailers and tourists, things like that. It's very difficult to do anything there, let alone try to film something like that. So I agree with you. It's kind of a fun test. I like to do it, but just not available to me at all times. Come loose, see? Unscripted. Our next comment is from Jeff Silver on the 2017 Ford Escape SC test drive. He says, yeah, interior panel gap is a huge factor in buying a car, question mark. What the hell are you talking about? Jeff, you're obviously a Ford customer. What can I tell you? Now, in jest, I'm kidding. I'm kidding, okay? Cheap plastic interiors that look like they were put together by drunk school kids aren't just things that we find in Fords. There are other brands out there that just haven't quite gotten it through their thick skulls yet, that people do want fit and finish. They want quality. Great news is we've got a lot of brands out there, and we've got other brands out there who do it really well for the same price. Now, again, I'm kind of being sarcastic, so if you're at Ford and you're going, Sam doesn't like us, I'll tell you that there are Fords we tested this year that had wonderful interiors. I praise them. In fact, one made it to our I'd buy list. That would be the Ford Focus RS. That one is manufactured in Germany, I'll point out, unlike the other Ford Focuses that are not. Different interior fit and finish. So the reason I really pick on that is because, to me, when I spend $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 for a car, I'm living in the thing every day. What I look at when I'm sitting behind the wheel is my first and almost the total measure of quality. How well is this thing designed and put together? If you're sitting there and you're looking at plastic that doesn't line up from one trim piece to the other, you're listening to rattles, you see trim that has one finish here and then another finish there that they don't match. It's like they're made in two different factories, and I could go on and on and on. You start thinking, boy, maybe I didn't get such a great deal. Maybe this thing's a big pile of shit. That is why I talk about this, because my job as a journalist is to look at the things that maybe you don't get to see when you're at the dealership at 10 o'clock at night buying a car. Maybe these are things that you're excited about buying a car, you're in the motions, and you just forget to look at some of these details. These are things that I have a fine-tuned eye for. I see them, I point them out, and so it gives buyers out there who maybe haven't had a chance to go look at this car yet, it gives them an idea what to look for when they go out to look for themselves, and to give my opinion. And the cars I test drive, they roll off the same assembly line as the ones that you buy at the dealership. So they're a good measure of what the quality is. And my view is that sometimes that's an indicator that maybe other parts of the car aren't put together so well. Like maybe it's not going to last because some of the mechanical parts aren't designed to put together so well either. So to me, that's always sort of a first measure of quality. Don't like it? Watch somebody else. Next is 2016 Jeep Renegade Sport 4x4 off-road test. He says, this guy sounds like a dick. This would be Melly Mel. We get the point. There are plenty of Jeep reminders. Wow. That's what he says. And this is in reference to the Jeep Renegade test drive I did, and I had a really good time pointing out all the Jeep logos on this thing. No other vehicle that I've ever tested has so many logos and reminders about what it was than the Jeep Renegade. But the thing is, I think you might have missed the point. If you go watch the video, which is linked down below, I'll point out, you'll see that I'm smiling. I'm having a good time with it, and I'm actually pointing these things out as positives. It makes it fun. This vehicle has logos in the headlights, in the taillights. They're all over the interior, hidden in little places. They're what they call Easter eggs in the business. These are little secret things that you would never notice unless you were looking for them. And that particular vehicle is an Easter basket. I'm telling you, there are logos everywhere. I think it's a pretty neat thing. It sounds like maybe Melly Mel thought I was being a bitch about it. Reality is, I thought it was kind of neat. And I had a fun time with that vehicle, the Renegade. A lot of fun out there for a good price. And the interior is actually pretty well put together, I'll point out. Next comment, face off, Toyota Tacoma TRD Pro versus the Chevrolet Colorado ZR2. Comment comes from Chris Schultz. The Toyota's computer system basically is a locker. And what he's referencing here is a big part of the discussion comparing the TRD Pro to the ZR2 is that the Chevrolet ZR2 has a locking front differential, a mechanical, electronic locking differential. It literally locks those front tires to where they spin at the exact same speed at all times they're locked. It effectively gets rid of the differential. So if you're in a very difficult tractive situation, you can depend on the fact that both of those front wheels are going to turn and they're going to put power down to the ground. That's what a locking differential is for. Now what he's saying is Toyota's computer system is basically the same thing. No. No, it isn't. The computer system on the Toyota, basically what it does, and believe me, the Toyota dealership will try to tell you this, that, oh, it's the same thing as a mechanical locker. It does the same thing. It doesn't. And here's the difference. On the Toyota, or any other vehicle where they use the brake system, the traction control system to emulate a locking differential, basically what they're doing is when one of those front wheels or rear wheels, in the case of a rear fake electronic locker, what they're doing is they're clamping the brakes on the wheel that's spinning and sending power to the other side. Now it may do it equally so that at some level equal torque is making it to both of those wheels, but you have braking force going to a wheel, which is effectively cutting power to that wheel. So what you're getting is you're pushing power from one side to the other, you're taking it away from one side so that it'll go to the other. So you're not really getting full power to both of those wheels. It's being pushed around to one or the other that has traction. The problem becomes, what if you're in a really difficult spot like mud, where you have zero traction on both of those front wheels and the system's trying to figure out what to do about that? You're not getting full power to either one of those front wheels in that particular case. What you're then getting is the brakes clamping down on those wheels and cutting power to a situation where you really want to be able to turn all the nannies off and just gun and go. And that really is what the benefit of a true mechanical locker is all about. When you engage that, it turns off all the traction control system so that when you put power down to those wheels, they're going to spin. They are going to just, it's like a Tonka truck with solid axles. Everything just goes. And granted, that's not the most refined thing in the world. It kind of makes the vehicle move around on you a little bit and do some unpredictable things, but you know you're getting the power down there to both wheels regardless of whether they're touching the ground or what kind of surface they're on. And sometimes that's necessary if you're really out there in the rough. That's the difference. The electronic system specifically in that Toyota, very, very good. I'm not bagging on it, but to say that it's equal to a mechanical locker, no, it just isn't. So moving on to the next one, 2017 mechanical, 2017 mechanical, see? 2017 Mercedes-Benz GLC 300 4MATIC Coupe, our first drive that we did just recently. In this particular test drive, this was just a quick drive, not a full detailed drive review, but I talked about the drive modes this has and how they tie into the air suspension. And the air suspension, fully adjustable, you can have an off-road mode which raises the suspension up. You can have a soft and cushy normal mode, or you can turn it up to sport and have what I called firm and deliberate. Motor City J here, one of my favorite viewers, says, I prefer firm and deliberate. Well, so do I. Always have, always will. So there you have Mow Down for October 2017. Now, if you like what you just saw, click right here, subscribe to our YouTube channel. I do this once every month or so, when these comments really get to a point where I just have to, or see our latest video right there. Either way, stay tuned.